Oh, this is major. It's like the next big thing. Come catch the wave, yeah. Yeah, watch what's happening. A force of nature. Hit 'em like lightning. Be the creator of the next big thing. We're the movers and shakers. We are the dreamers, the makers. We stand on top of equators. We are the limitless. We got the future, no papers. We are the innovators. We have the focus like lasers. You know we doing it big. Oh, this is major. This is major.
Welcome to the Compromised to Alchemized podcast with me, your host, Dr. Neil Bolchandani, and I've got Holly Del Valle on again. She's really phenomenal in terms of so many aspects of the healing spectrum, and I really got so excited to talk with her on this two-part series to follow up the solo episode that we did, which was actually more of us interviewing one another than it was of a true interview for her. So that's why I got really excited with the intent behind this one, because I really wanted to showcase what she's doing and kind of where she's going. And so in part one, we talked about fluid art. That's the kind of medium in which she can say that she flourishes. She's had so much in terms of breakthrough that's come through it for her personally. But then she also talks about the workshop she's done in the past, as well as one that she's got this Saturday. Although by the time you hear this, that will have passed. But really love the conversation. We actually dive also into not only the fluid art medium and more on what it is and some of the great stories that have come from that and the people that she's walked through that. We also talk about the feminine and masculine polarities in terms of energy. We delve into a lot more in between. And also, if you kind of tune in, you don't have to watch it. So that's not that that's required. We do talk a little bit about the pieces or parts of a workshop. And so kind of her perspective, my perspective, we tag team to kind of put in there a little bit of a demo workshop. So just more to say on that is that if you tune in, you'll see some prompts, and if you follow them, you might be able to kind of experience some of what she usually facilitates in some of these workshops. So without further ado, I want to lead you into this episode. Shout out to Jessica with Lyric House LA and with lunaluxe. lunaluxe is the group that supplies the music for the intro called Major. The song rocks. I love it. I just can't get enough of it. So if you want to tune in and listen to the episode, and please comment, love to hear what you think about this episode. And of course, please tune in to episode 2, because we get into some things right at the end of episode 1 that I really feel like we totally go into in a way deeper way in that second one. So enjoy, and can't wait to hear what you think.
You know we doing it big. Oh, this is major.
All right, we're here, and Holly, I am excited for this conversation. I am really excited because we've had one IG Live. Some people tuned in, some people also heard it on the podcast, but I've been excited because we've been planning a truer deep dive into more of like what you do, and we're going to cover a lot of that. So yeah, excited to have you on, and I'm really eager for this conversation and for people to dive into your work with fluid arts. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And it's not a subject I really get to talk about a lot anymore. So it's like super exciting to delve back into it and reignite that flame again.
Yeah, and I really want to dig into, you told me a little bit about it. Maybe we shared a little bit on that IG Live, but I really want to hear more of like the genesis of it, that creation of it, how it happened for you. And, you know, also want you to tell us about the space, just so people can kind of like feel that too of whoever's watching, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about the space and tell us
So
about
the
what you do.
space that I'm in is actually called Waves and Wonder. It's in downtown
Mm.
Sarasota, and it's owned by a good girlfriend of mine, Kelsey LaMonaco, and she has just curated this wonderful space where it can be used for workshops, for health and wellness, for podcasts, for different classes. And so just the energy here is so good. And I decided that I was going to have my fluid art workshop here on Saturday. And we actually were just talking earlier that I really want to have another one for kids because it is so childlike and it's so fun and anybody can really do it. And I know I was like going through memories to try to post videos to entice people as to what they were signing up for, like what is fluid art? And I came across all these videos of when my son he just turned 6, but he was about 3. And, we were doing these together. And I mean, honestly, I can't remember if the ones hanging up in his room are ones that he did or ones that I did. And I think that that's just so fun because it can ignite that inner artist in all of us, that inner creator. So as far as the genesis, I feel like it all started even way back in childhood, right? Like I can remember being very much into art, but I was never very awesome at any of it per se. And I don't know if that's because I didn't spend enough time doing one said thing. My mom might disagree. She happened to think some of my artwork was fantastic. But in my opinion, I would have never been like, oh, let me go try to put this up for sale or anything like that. Fast forward, there's a period of time, I think, especially for women, and I can remember reading this book, and I don't know who it's by, so I apologize, but this was back when I was in my 20s, and it was called I Know I'm in There Somewhere. And
Mm.
even the name of that book, it was all about how women, like as we grow up, we lose our voice. We forget who we are. We
Mm.
people please. We stop doing the things that bring us joy because we're busy doing other things, and we forget that that's actually a connection to like our core and what lights us up. So, anyways, I just got to this point after having my son, and I realized that a lot of my health and just I had this meeting with my doctor, who was a holistic minded doctor. She did traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, light therapy, cupping. I mean, just so many different things. And there were things going on with my body at the time. And she had suggested that I go see her esoteric healer, who was a part of her team. So I had a session with him, and I had just started to do some fluid art because I saw it online and it looked like I could do that. Like that looks simple enough. It doesn't look like I have to invest in all these art materials and then it not be good, because I think that's the hardest part for people. They don't want to start on something that looks like they can do it because they have to go buy all the materials. And then if it doesn't come out the way they wanted it to, the way they saw it look, or then they feel like a big failure. It was a waste of money, like the whole thing. And then they just stop. And I know that's what I've gone through. So I felt like when I saw fluid art, it looked like something I could actually do. Um,
So sorry to interrupt you, but can you tell me, like, for like I think there's a while I knew what it was, but then I didn't know that's what it was called. So can you just tell us, like, what does it look like when somebody's doing fluid art? And for
okay,
people,
so I
people
brought
have
some
probably come across it. Yeah,
I'll try to explain it for those that can't see because I have a
yeah.
few different ones. So fluid art essentially is taking acrylic-based paint that has been thinned out so that it moves fluidly.
Mm.
And when you do that, there's a few different ways. So I usually teach people that you can either do a pour in a cup. So you can just layer on the different colors. And I tell people all the time when I'm doing workshops, like, you guys lay out the colors because it almost doesn't even matter what colors you mix together. I've hardly seen any that look like, ooh, it's amazing how when the colors mix together and you pour them in a cup and then you dump it onto a canvas and you move it around, I do think there is a total neurological thing going on. Like we are actively involved. There's a lot of different senses that are involved. And we are literally just in this meditative state of watching our artwork become. And there's no way to know how it's going to look. So there's no way to set yourself up for this like failure. And I think that was part of the biggest draw for me. So yeah, I started to do that, and it's so fun and it's so easy to create multiple that you're like, ooh, that was fun. Let me try it this way this time. And then before you know it, you're like creating 5 or 6 of them. But I had this meeting and he told me there's a lot of masculine energy in your life. And it was true at that time. I mean, for years I had, solely been providing for myself. I had worked a sales job. I mean, I did well in it, but in my relationships, I was the one that paid for everything because I had the money. It just came in that way. And so I took on this role that was not exactly healthy. And then even post having my son, it was this realization that I didn't even have a whole lot of female friends. I mean, I had some, but the collection of people in my life were men. My son was a man, my partner was a man, and these were who I was always around. And then my friends even were not really even super girly girls. It just never was my type, and that's okay. But I guess I started to wonder if there wasn't something of a feminine energy mismatch. And then he said it in the thing, and he's like, you need more feminine energy in your life. And I'm like, he's like, maybe paint, do art. I'm like, I've been doing art. And he goes, good, do more of that. And so I did, and it lit me up. So yeah, that's kind of where it all started. And then, it just kind of blossomed from there. I started making so many that I decided to post them, and people were loving them. And I decided, okay, I'm going to post them all whether I love them or not. And surprisingly enough, even the ones that I didn't think were my best were the ones that I got the most reactions on. And then one day someone asked, are you selling these? Can I buy this one? And I thought, somebody wants to buy something I made? And then I had this tug of war going on because even though it's not like I spent months and months putting together this masterpiece, it was still something I actually really loved. And I was like, oh no, because it's not like I could just go recreate it exactly again. Like if I get rid of it, that's it. And my partner said to me, so what are you going to do? Hold on to all of them? Like, I mean, you're making, what's the point of making them all? And I thought, right. And that just kind of began. Like I opened up, instead of closing that opportunity because I wanted to keep it, it was like, yeah, let me open that. And it began this where I started selling my artwork, and, people across the world that were following me were, asking me to send them my paintings. And I'm like, this is so wild. I had my paintings up in an art shop in downtown Sarasota. And I began hosting workshops because I thought there's such a beauty of being able to blend not only people's feminine energy, but also like their childlike energy. I host I don't host, I'm a part of a Boar's Head art therapy event that they put on for their employees every year here. And I've done it now for 3 years. And there's, people of all ages, men and women. And the way that the men light up like little kids, like, ooh, can I try this color? Like, can I do another one? It's very, very cute because it's a lot of people who normally don't even touch artwork because they don't even think that they can. And I just wanted to ignite this remembrance in people that we are all creators of beautiful things. We don't have to see the ending even. Like it was just all this metaphorical stuff that went into it. And last night, Matt says to me, it's funny, my partner, he says, it's funny that it's fluid art and you deal with craniosacral fluid and cerebral spinal fluid. And I'm like, oh, he's like, I'm sure you've thought of that before. And I'm like, I actually haven't. And I can't believe I haven't. But yeah, lymphatic fluid, cerebral spinal fluid, like, I mean, maybe I have in some point, but it like really clicked last night. And I'm like, it's just, it all intertwines. And that was kind of the premise of why I named my business Holistic Alchemy, because I had gone through my own health challenges. I had gone about them through holistic experiences. So I decided to tie my name into that. But there was a definitive alchemization process of healing a mother wound, one that had been like going through the generational lines even. And that being expressed, like my mom began doing fluid art as a result of me doing it. And she was always somebody who thought I was great at art, but that wasn't something she could do. And so she was always kind of like envious that I had this talent that she didn't have. And then come to find out, she was amazing at this and she began doing it. It brought her so much joy. She started making jewelry out of like the leftover art, the paint that flows over. And it was like, look at that. And now she has gone on to take an art therapy course. She's learned all sorts of different digital art. I mean, it's like it ignites this remembrance, and I see it time and time again. So yeah, it's just a fun thing that I love being able to share.
Oh, I love that. That's so powerful, like that igniting remembrance, because I feel like, well, there's first of all, I'm just jumping in at that, but there was so much that you said that was really layers of making and unmaking when it comes to like how you have like become who you are in terms of like how you show up for others, and then just those kind of not dramatic, but so significant themes of like masculine, feminine energy, recognizing that not only in you, but you're facilitating that in others. But then I love that childlike energy, that energy that's like, even simpler or more foundational. It's like just the play that happens and the joy that you see in people.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. But this remembrance thing I think is really good, because I feel like there's, and I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but only if you want to, but it's like remembrance to me brings people from like when they forget like joy, but also when they forget who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they also forget hope. Like some people who are really struggling and suffering, it's like sometimes they just need to remember how much they have, how much they've had. Maybe that's more of what it is. Maybe they don't have what they had, but that it's obtainable and attainable. And I feel like, yeah, with it's really, I love that Matt put those two words, the
Yeah.
fluidities, because I think it is a beautiful, cerebrospinal fluid
Right.
flows, and that blood flow is a medium for so much more than just the blood. It's the oxygen, it's the connectivity, like you said. So we have
Right.
that connectivity that's happening in our bodies.
Fluid of like what literally is in the quantum physics realm. So it's like it is all fluid, right? And
Yeah,
like even when I was going through a healing process, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you just like
keep
sparked something.
going. Yeah, please do.
I was going through like this heart wall session. Have you heard of emotion code?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I had had a heart wall session, and for those that don't know what it is, emotion code will work on different emotions that you have trapped in the body, and the practitioner will see what your body is willing to release at that time. From my understanding, the heart wall is essentially when you've been through so many different things that your heart has essentially become walled up as a protective mechanism, but that also cuts out the access to joy and a lot of the feeling that kind of connects us. So my friend who does emotion code was like, I think you'd really benefit from this. So she did 4 sessions on me, I think it was. And I can just vividly remember taking a bath and laying there listening to The Waves We Give by Beautiful Chorus. Have you heard that song?
No.
I think you'd like them if you didn't know that song, but they simply say like it's kind of a takeoff of that movie Be Like Water. I'm not thinking of it, Karate Kid, where he's like telling him to be like water. So she's
Yeah,
saying,
yeah, Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi is
yes,
telling
yes. So
Daniel-san to be like
yes,
water. Yeah, totally.
yeah. So they're like, just the song still brings me to tears to this day. I think it's the
Mm,
frequency of everything involved with it, but they're basically saying, be like water, my friend. You can find a way out or through it, where nothing within you stays rigid
mm,
and
yeah,
everything moves, right? And it's like, isn't that what we want in the body on all levels, right? And when we
yeah.
get emotionally stuck, like we can feel it, like it's like you just want to flow. And I can remember all the tears flowing. And then she had said at the end of that Heartwell session that she had felt like Mary Magdalene was like there with me. She's like, I don't know what
Mm,
your connection, if you have a connection, if you don't, if this doesn't resonate, I'm sorry, but this is what's coming up. And I thought, you know, that's interesting. And at that moment, I felt this warmth, and it had been hard for me at that time for me to picture having like what I felt like was the mom I needed, right? Like we go through these things, like I didn't have the mom I needed, which, you know, maybe that had been true, but it was hard for me to picture my mom being that. I was able to somehow picture this other feminine being that though. And I thought how beautiful it was that I could now envision this space being held. Um, Anyways, fast forward about 6 months later, I was presented with an opportunity to go to southern France on a Mary Magdalene retreat, or not retreat, it was a pilgrimage, definitely not a retreat.
Yeah.
Not a retreat at all. Um, and I was like, listening to the women talking to me about this, and I'm like, and in the back of my head I thought, don't just cut it out, like, or I just kept hearing, don't just cut it out, like just be open, right? Just what if. So I told her at the end of the conversation, like, okay, I'm gonna have to sit with this for a little bit, I'll let you know. And then it was like for a week I was taunted, it felt like, with sign after sign, and I was like, I don't know why I feel so strongly to go, but I do. And I still don't know if I know all the reasons that I went, but I do feel like a part of that was to ignite again, like this remembrance of who we are, what we're capable of. Like, you know, there's stories of the Essenes and Jesus and Mary Magdalene all, you know, learning to heal with their hands. Like I was just talking with my son the other day because, you know, he's been watching Matt and I do a lot of the work that we do. And he had mentioned that he was going to help my thumb because my thumbs from doing massage are just not what they used to be. And he wanted to do thumb war. And I told him it just honestly hurt my thumb to even move it back and forth like that. And so he said, here, give me your thumb. And he put his hands on it. And it honestly felt instantly better because his intention and touch. And I'm like, what a simple thing we forget because we
Yeah.
think it's too simple that it can't do anything. But yet, if your child is hurt, what's the first thing you do, right? Or if like somebody was to be hurt right next to you, if they were like, you know, bleeding, maybe you're not touching them, but you're probably sitting and holding space for them. And that does help. And it's like, I don't know, I'm getting off hand here, but all of this stuff isn't not connected. It's all connected. It's all of this remembrance that I think when I was in my masculinity a lot, when I didn't have fluid art in my life, I had disconnected with and was living out of a very rigid survival. I can control everything. I can do everything I need to. You know, even though I had done a lot of surrendering because my health had given me no choice, I was still gripping. And in many places, like maybe there's still work that needs to happen for a lot of us when we've been through that. But I'd like to think that a lot of things have like just opened up as a result of my remembering, really.
Yeah, that's powerful. I know I'm gonna probably ask you a little bit more about some of what you talked about in part two, but I'm open to just the flow. So because there is so much beauty on that topic of just the simple but yet powerful touch and
Mm-hmm.
your son and what kind of you and Matt have shown him and demonstrated so much that like a sponge he absorbed it and then gave it back to you. So I think that is like a continuum of giving, and when you overflow, the ones around you or the world around you, like especially when we're talking about people around you like your little one, they can't help but then overflow. Like when you're in need, I love that too, that it came from a need for thumb war, right? I was just like, let me just say, my kids is the same. They're like, Dad, you know, I know you're whatever, if I've got something going on like breathing, it's a lot better right now, but struggling with asthma. And they're like, you know, they care about me, but they're like, Dad, we want you to run. Like, it's like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
care about me, but they just want to be with me and they want to do that together. So I love that out of the need for thumb war led to sensitive touch affirmation and healing that came
Yeah.
through. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for that
Uh,
reflection. It was really cute and sweet.
and I think there's so much to the connectivity of all these things. Oh, so I have to go back to the one thing because maybe it is Mr. Miyagi, but it actually might be Bruce Lee, who Bruce Lee, you know, he was such a sage when it came to teaching people not about martial arts, but about
Yeah.
energy, right? And
Right.
he said, you got to, I won't do the accent. I'm not great at Bruce
You're like,
Lee
I can't
anyways.
help myself, but I'll
I'm not
stop.
gonna do it. But he said you move like water. You must move like water.
Mhm.
And a 10-second thing is that's what informed me in my interpretive dance and movement history from when I was in my teens, is I would move to imitate water and liquid and fluid. And
I
so I would become like water, um, to such a degree that, you know, it would look like, as anybody does when they do liquiding, right? It looks like you don't have that physical structure of what the bones do. It's more
right.
tapping into our fluid, immaterial nature. But to the same point that you made makes sense, is like, especially I love this conversation in context of the feminine energy. Like the feminine energy needs to just flow, and you did, like you surrendered, and then you opened up, and it's like all these words are like allowing something, but then you carry the polarities as well, like with the masculine, which obviously, like you said, it was predominant before. Now you have a more of a balance, because we need the structure of the masculine and the flow of the feminine.
Mhm.
And with just one, it's too far in one direction, but with both, there's a natural cohesion.
Yes. And I was just thinking too, like back in my days of selling, right? Like I was great at that. That was very masculine though. And
Mm-hmm.
my armpits would sweat and my stomach would
Mm,
be upset. And I was just
mm,
like, these were signs, very loud
mm,
signs that I was just like, oh, I don't know, and I just go out there and I sell and make money and it was no big deal. Just, go out and party and forget about the symptoms that I was having where my body was like, this isn't where you're best using your skills.
mm,
This isn't in alignment for you. And not only that, but when I have found that even in my business, when I am pushing versus just allowing and letting what like needs to come my way, it's like, yes, I can make things happen, I can push to make things happen, but there's so much more fluid abundance that comes in, not just abundance in finances, but abundance in time, in space for myself, in the healing that I need, every single facet, when I'm not the one trying to control it from my masculine state of being. And that's something that being in my feminine really taught me. I didn't have that growing up, so it was always like being in this masculine state, which felt like I was strong, and I was,
yeah.
but there was this learning how to be strong while also learning how to be soft. And I think that's also something that I've learned even by doing Pilates now, like, and not in a class, and there's nothing wrong with classes, it's just that personally for me, I've realized through Pilates how much I have not been using my body correctly, even just to stand, sit, breathe, all the things, much less the movements that I'm doing. So no wonder now I can't just go into the gym and, do some squats and feel good. I'm using the wrong muscles, so I'm prone to throwing my back out. So I need somebody who's helped make my body literally stronger, but being able to understand the anatomy when she's telling me, well, you have to like do this, but you have to soften here. It's like, that's the weirdest. What do you mean? Like, this is hard. I should be, but you have to soften in order to let that actually do what it's supposed to do. It is the most complex thing in your head to get through. And yet it's so metaphysically, metaphorically relative to just life. It's like you
Yeah.
have to find that balance.
Yeah. Well, you reminded me of Bruce Lee right there, because you were talking, and then you were like, and it's kind of like, I love that though, because martial arts, I always go back to, even though I have some training in like kung fu and some other arts, but I'm a lover, not a fighter, for the most part, but I want to be able to know how to hold space. But I love that martial arts has arts, and there's this, like, even with that, there's this synergy of, when you are like, like with Pilates, that's what made me think of that too, is of course when we talk about like Pilates, somatics, strength and activation, connection, there's the physicality of that that's really significant. And then there's also the mind part of it, mindfulness, interoception, And you're kind of yeah, if we look at all of the things that you are talking about, I love how you're traversing this medium of the arts with fluid art to craniosacral and craniosacral fascial to all the other things that you do. And then we go to like the discussion of like handling and managing our energies. So what I love is that like I just think about these people. So you have this workshop that at this time will have already come out. It's coming out this Saturday. You'll be doing it there in Sarasota area, but I love it because like when people come into this room, they're getting like the breadth of your knowledge in distilled into you holding space with this really particular medium. I feel like that's really powerful because you could tell people about a bunch of things for that amount of time and they would learn a lot intellectually, but then you hold space for them to engage in this medium that lets them create and put something onto a canvas, and then they walk away with that, and then they maybe consciously are aware of what just happened, or maybe aren't, or maybe will be. So could you take us into the canvas and
Yeah.
into the canvas of this Saturday? You've done this before, you're going to do this again, and like I don't know, yeah, tell me, like, because in one way I'm like I so don't want to go more into like the body work part because I feel like we're going to talk about
I
that.
want to get back to the fluid art. I'm so excited you got me back over here.
Well, no, because it's all a container, it's all a spectrum, it's all a continuum. So for you can't let go of the body work part when you're talking about this because it informs your fluid art.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we like take ourselves down and distill it into like that time, I almost like see the swirling paint in the room and almost like this cosmic collaboration happening with creativity, energy, people's destinies coming in. Then they walk into the room and then they have this time. And I'm almost thinking like, I want to ask, like, what are some of the things that have happened with your students before in their lives? And you've already shared some with your mom, and that's powerful. Your
Yeah.
mom engaged in it, but like, tell me maybe one person and how they transformed or how it helped them. And then like this coming Saturday, what are you excited about? Like in terms of like, now that you're doing this again and you're going to see yourself, I want to talk to you as a guide and facilitator of other people's artistic beings, and also somebody who knows like you're guiding people in healing, so you can kind of look at them in another way than just somebody who does fluid art as well. So it's really cool to think about that.
Yeah. Well, so I kind of want to go back into like real quick because you asked a couple different things, but the first thing that I was thinking of was yes. One of the first things I do with people is have them write something on the canvas, like something that they want to let go, or something that they feel is maybe unworthy of themselves, something they don't like about themselves, something about their situation that they want to let go. And then the idea is that we're then covering that, we're alchemizing that in the process of, pouring that paint onto the canvas and allowing not only the color choices that they've chosen, but the way that they choose to move it. So if they're moving it slow versus quick, if they go to one side versus another, it changes how things move. So they get an idea of like how they want to swirl it around until it gets to the edge and what image they want it to save. And then they can keep it right there. That end result, I think, blows people away because they're not expecting to have any ability for it to come out looking like, like for instance, this one I made look like somewhat of a sunflower but the thing is that this was literally just dumping paint, and the way that it can really just take your mind in a different direction. And I think one of the things that I used to love about sharing my work was that people would always see different things in the paintings, and that just made you realize how much artwork gets people's brains thinking and emotions. Everything comes out of that. So I love that experience for people because I feel like every single time it's always been this blown away feeling from everybody. And I almost wish I had more canvas and paint because everybody always wants to do more than one. And people end up going home and doing this in their own time. And that I think is the biggest thing about it, because I don't know many adults now that make time to play. And this reminds them that it doesn't have to take forever. I mean, I used to do this after my son would go to bed on the patio. Like it can be quick, but just that little spurt of like putting on some music and, having that moment was like, this is such a great exhale. So yeah, it's been, I think I may have forgotten which other questions you may have asked me. So you may have to remind me.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I mean, it's good too to get people in. I mean, I would encourage somebody, if you can, write something on a page right now that you want to let go of, because Holly's holding space for us here, and even if we just let her talk and all you're doing is hearing her, you could just, some people probably already did this in their minds. They probably already wrote a word of something they want to let go of on the canvas of the screen of their minds. But if those of you want to do that, please do. And if you're driving, clearly don't close your eyes and clearly don't get out a paper, but just say the word out loud. And sometimes that helps your brain hold on to it. But yeah, I would love to know. So you kind of already painted the picture a little bit of like what happens with your workshops, and what kind of, it doesn't take a lot of time. How long are your workshops usually?
I usually have them for about an hour and a half because it doesn't take a whole lot of time, but I do like to be able to incorporate, more into it, so that people have a chance to understand and let that sink in a little bit more than just like, okay, quick, we're done. All right, that was fun. It's so much more in depth than that.
And I know people are coming for an experience, which clearly we know how to give one, because of all you have within your mind and your heart. So, when people come, can you give us like a story of somebody who's come to one before? I know you've told me a few, so they're kind of like rolling through my mind. But if one like comes to mind right now, where you're like somebody who attended and had some kind of experience and then shared it with you, I'd love to like have you open that up.
So there was a woman that had come and she had been going through like a severe depression. And she had just opened up to me after the fact. And had just kind of decided between this workshop and something else, and had just woken up that morning going, okay, it's going to be this. Like, this is just where I feel like I should go. And that moment, she said, just changed everything for her. I mean, because it's something that isn't not replicable. Like, people can take what they learn. They can learn where I get my supplies. They can go home and do it themselves. And yes, I'm not there with them every time, but they've learned how to do it. And now they can explore their own ways, and they can start branching off and exploring their own creative avenues. And so for her, that opened up where she was no longer having to take the SSRIs that she was on. She was no longer feeling like she was at the end of things. So art can really change things for people, and it can help with the rewiring. I did end up sending her like some tapping things, because I felt like for her, being able, while she was doing some neuro pathway work, right, it would be really good for her to release maybe some of the emotional feelings that she could name. But yeah, most of that was just her being able to do artwork. And now that's what she mostly does. And it's amazing because I'm like every time I see her post artwork, I'm like, you're still doing it, And that was
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's so amazing, that because you could see like what that fostered in her, and like the seed that blossomed and became a nourishing plant for her life. So that's really powerful. I know you mentioned tapping, like EFT, emotional freedom technique, and tapping. I don't know, I started getting into that probably like when I became a chiropractor, which was like 17 years ago. And I'm like, I tap all the time. And for those like, you did a video, you like recently I saw you do a tapping video, and I'm like, love it, Holly, go for it. And that's so good. And I have a lot of families who come in, and they're just, they love how tapping helps their selves and their kids regulate. So, but I want to also say, with you and your workshops, like, just can't help but think like, more people are going to want there's this is a fluid art is a thing that goes on, and there are places where it is being done, but for for you, Holly, like, I'm excited to think about other future times where you'll do these so people can come attend. And I'm also thinking like you could, you have you done this via a webinar? Do you have thoughts of like,
So I tried. I think it's
okay,
difficult, or at least I haven't found a fluid way of putting it together.
I love it.
I haven't found a way to make that cohesive yet,
Yeah.
because I feel like if people are having to buy their own supplies, I mean, yes, obviously they're still coming to a workshop, but how can I make that a value that works for both people when they're on their own essentially watching? It's a little bit more difficult for them to see what's happening. And so, I mean, I have, but it's been more on like, I only had 3 people in the group and they seemed happy with it. It just, I didn't feel like it was as impactful as in
Well, I
person.
think like the potency and the like the transformative nature of being in a room, physical space with others when you're doing something so physical and creative, there's
Yeah.
just so much. So
Yeah.
so you'll have to keep us posted on like when you do your next one. And I mean, of course, like people will know in the show notes like how to follow you, and holistic alchemist of holistic. You say holistic, right? Because it's
I
your
say
name.
holistic because, that
Yeah.
sounds better, but it just threw
Yeah.
my name in there.
Well, I know that's one of the reasons I first reached out to you, other than I love your content and I love your the breadth of what you do and talk about within like this broader field of healing. But I'm like, oh, you just got um such a like a voice of expression, and you're a guide that like leads people through these journeys. And I think you mentioned this earlier, but so yeah, with even with this like compromise to alchemize, right? I know there's like a syncing up of our names, which I really love. Um, it means a lot of things, which I'll ask you a little question later on that's related to like my theme. But actually, I've had a reclarification of my theme of the podcast where we do talk about the journey of healing and alchemy. But I'm really more than ever wanting to focus on the resurgence, the rebirth, the reclamation of the voice and the feminine voice as what's needed for like all of us. And I mean, you spoke to it some with polarities and how you needed more feminine energy. And I just think it's like important for me to say, like in most of the places in the world, the feminine energy isn't given the proper space to flourish. So some people be like, well, we need masculine too. And I'm like, 100%. You gave us a good example of that. But there isn't really a suppressor on the masculine energy. That's just there. Everybody, it's there. So I'm really committed to speaking about the feminine and that need to like showcase, but of course then highlighting ones like you, yeah, who are women. But I think it's more like even that you engage with some of these practices like fluid art that are such a demonstrative way that people can unlock that, even if they don't know how to talk about feminine energy, they don't want to talk about it, it doesn't really matter.
Right, because it doesn't matter what your gender is with this. I've done this with men, full-grown
Yeah,
men, and they
yeah,
love it. Like, it's not, it's just, it is igniting that feminine energy without it having to be, like you said, something that makes them feel like I mean, I think that's one of the things too, is that as I've come to have more of a balance of that, I've realized that my body has been trying to tell me for a long time to balance in that, balance and rest, balance through integration. You don't have to push, you don't have to work so hard. And that's such the way society is, that it's seen as lazy and all of these other things if you don't do things the way everyone else is doing. And I think I can remember that especially when I was on my trip in France, because here I had spent thousands of dollars on this trip and we were supposed to be doing all these different excursions, and there was a man who was helping because he knew the different locations and such that would be going to. So he was the one helping facilitate because he was the one in France. And the way that it was scheduled was so masculine.
Yeah. Right.
No integration period whatsoever. And I
Yeah.
thought to myself, okay, one of two things. I can either do that and then run myself ragged, because I know far too well if I do that, that's not going to fly with my system. The whole long flight, being away from my family, doing something that was so out of my comfort zone and, scary but exciting. And why am I going, all that feeling was already so much that I really needed to listen to the cues of my body on that trip so much. And it was difficult because here I was, possibly the youngest one on this trip. And I was the one that needed to have integration period. I was the one to say, I can't, I'm not going on today's adventures. I need to stay back. When, I think 20 something year old me would have thought, who am I to take up that space? Like, I'm the youngest one here. Why can't I keep up? Everyone else is doing it. We paid for this, all the things, when it was like, my body was like, who cares? It doesn't matter. You're going to speak up for my needs or not, and that's that strong feminine energy that came up. And as a result of listening to that and carving out space for myself, I noticed that then one of the leaders of the retreat had taken a break the next day. It was like a permission slip that, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And we can take a break for a second, and we do need to integrate. And we, as people who are in the healing field, know that more probably than anybody. If you're empathetic and deal with energy, like, you can't just compound it. You need a second to let it all. And I think that in general in life, when I spread myself too thin, when I people please, when I'm, all of that is not listening to the body. And I think that whether it's listening to your body, listening to, the subtle energy of what's around you, being able to tap into what's more than just right here, you can't do that from that other frame of mind that I lived in for so long. And for me, when out of that balance now, my health is the first thing that tells me. And it's like, okay, like I like now need to stay in this feminine balance now that I know what it is. It's like somebody who's never received a massage. They're like, I'm good. But then they have it and they're like, okay, I have to have this all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. And, oh yeah, you touched on so much there. So I was thinking about that, you were saying, when you had, like, you recognize, it was just, I was thinking of so many beautiful, powerful things all at once when you, that kind of, like, I think especially now with you talked about listening, and you showed it as well when you listened to your body, you listened to yourself. Not only did you do what you needed to do, but in following that intuition, instead of just going with the way things were, because I know you respected, like, that there was a schedule and all those things, but you just could feel it, and you did, and by leading in that, you allowed there to be a template for somebody else, that other person, to take a break too. And I can remember things like that when I reflect on events and things like that, where I'm just like, I'm going to do this because I really want to do this, but I'm feeling like I don't see anybody else saying anything. So if we wait for other people to lead, and then you, Holly, especially because you are such a leader and a feeler, sensor, well, there might be others who, like, really need you to come out front and say things and do things. But I also simultaneously was just thinking, I'm going to say something, but then I'm going to, like, give the mic back to you, of course. It's like, I just couldn't help but think about that, when you told us about when people come into your workshop and the fluid art workshop, and then they, like, usually start with, you have them write something on the canvas that's like something to let go of. I started to hear, like, these words that you were saying about, like, the words you were asking yourself in that instance, like, can I listen to myself? Can I give my, I feel those in people now, where I'm like, if you feel those words coming up in you, like, maybe write them down, or at least acknowledge, like, tune into your body. And, like, if you're in a place in life, especially if that feminine voice has not been allowed to express, like, you allow those questions in you, like, can I speak up? Can I have this? Can I listen? Because, as you knew it, like, the masculine energy can suppress. It's the gift of it is that it can push through and succeed and
Right.
break obstacles and smash things, but then later, you look back and you're like, ooh, now I need to like take stock of what just happened there. But some people, we don't ever take stock. And so
Right.
when you stop and listen, you can actually hear what's hurting. So even if people are like, whether you put that onto a page right now in front of you or you entertain those thoughts, but I kind of want to say, like, would you be okay leading us in like a way people can like crystallize and come through this activation that I just made up based on you creating in this moment? So I feel like I see it clear as day. And I wanted to throw that in there of like, yeah, I feel like that's bringing up these things in people. And so if we have like the clarity on the canvas, the swirling questions people feel, I feel like, can you bring us to a place of settledness or lead people on a way to say, like, here's how you can come through and crystallize any of that into like what can bring you, the listener, the viewer, something to come through. Anyways.
So I will try my best to do what you're asking here, but you brought up something that made me think. I wish I had it with me. It's not my favorite. I did a painting on top of a painting, which you can do that. So that's the other thing. Like, you literally can't mess up. If you absolutely dislike what came up on your canvas, swipe it off, do another one. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But I had one where I had done a couple layers on it, and I decided after it dried to write those words, "Am I allowed?" Because it was like
Yeah.
painting, and then I took a Sharpie, and I just wrote on it, like, "Am I allowed?" And that one didn't get too many likes. And you know what? It's okay. I was wondering if people actually understood, because that question is so, as you were saying, like, am I allowed? Am I allowed to take up space? Am I allowed to say these things? Am I allowed to feel this way? Am I enough? Am I worthy? And I think that was such a big part of that trip for me, that maybe people can take into doing their artwork, was that by listening to that and not just assuming that, like, I should just be able to push through. I should be able to, I mean, I'm here, I paid the money. Like, why am I, all the ways that we could judge ourselves and hold ourselves from doing what we feel we really need to do for ourselves. It allowed my body and nervous system, most especially, to realize that, yes, I was allowed. The only person giving me permission, who could give me permission, was me. And that if I didn't do it, who was going to? And that by doing it, I showed my body and my nervous system that I had its back.
Yeah.
Because how many times do we hear those things and then say, shh? And like, the body remembers every single time we told it, not right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this. No, I'm just going to forego. Like, I tell people all the time, even as simple as, like, if you have to pee, like, go pee, don't just hold it because you're having a conversation and it's bad timing. Like, go, and there's so many times that people are like in sales jobs and it's like, no, it's too much of I can't leave. It's like, oh my gosh, so it's all those things.
Maybe our next conversation needs to be all on peeing, because I feel like, boy, that came up like 10 times yesterday. It comes up so many times in my sessions, and I'm like, they're like, maybe I need to go pee because I'm about to work on their bladder. And I tell them, I'm like, so just in case you want to know I'm about to work on your bladder, they're like, oh, maybe I need to go pee right now. And I'm like, you go for it. That's the best thing to do if you feel it.
That's the best thing to do if you feel it. Yeah, don't hold it, right?
Right.
There's no reason for it, but we just, there's so many times, we've been taught to not listen to those things. They weren't important, and maybe sometimes it was not done with ill will. Maybe your parents had like 5 kids and it's just like, right now, you not being able to get your shoe on correctly is not a big deal. Just get in the car. It's like, I don't know, like, maybe there's a reason that you live to deal with certain discomforts, or you learn not to speak up. But the only person that can reclaim that for you is you. Like, your parent had 5 kids, they're not going to be able to go back in time. So it's a process of also like reparenting ourselves. And I think that's what a lot of that feminine energy and being able to play with your inner child, which a lot of this is, it's being able to play with your inner child and like mother your inner child and foster that. And you're doing it all within yourself. So it is kind of like a whole alchemization process within yourself. You are the child, the mother, like you're doing it all, taking something that maybe you thought you couldn't do and showing yourself you could. And I think that's huge for the brain and the body.
Yeah, when you said those words a few minutes ago, when you said with that layered painting and am I allowed, right? Is that the phrase that you said? I couldn't help but see that as am I allowed, like ALOUD? Am I allowed? And then am I loud? And am I loud enough, right? Because the voice is suppressed, and so many women, especially when I'm talking to them, and they're like, they'll even like say things in a lower voice, or they'll say like, I just feel like I'm whining, or and I'm like, no, like you need to be able to say what you're saying. In fact, can you say it louder right now? And I'm asking because I'm like, as a man, as a male, I want to hear that instructive wisdom and intuitive education coming from a woman I know. But it's like, but also I know for them, when you hear yourselves, at least 5% of our brain works off of sound propagation. So therefore, when we say things out loud, it actually trains our brains to recognize what we actually say, but process it. So I'm gonna ask you permission if you feel like, not permission, but more like, what do you think about like that am I allowed being the way that you bring people to a place of settledness? I almost feel like the art medium is so beautiful, painting is so beautiful, and it's kind of like a shift here with, but it's almost like I feel like the medium of bringing people to understand what you're teaching us is almost to have somebody or people right now say something aloud to externalize something. So does that spark something in you?
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I'm definitely going to use that on Saturday and just have, because you're right, there's the vibration, there's the frequency, there's even the tone of which we're saying whatever that happens to be, right? That's like allowing this release from the body. And you made me think about something too. I mean, there's also just that limited belief pattern that so many of us have that loops in a feedback in our minds. And a lot of it comes back to the creative process. And we need that creative process feedback loop to be open in order to solve problems, to get through life, to be adaptable. And I think when people don't think they have any creative bone in their body, like so many people, I could never do that. Like this, I think, is one of those things that like they don't even realize that it's transforming neural pathways and their limited beliefs from something as simple as just taking some paint onto a canvas, because they didn't even realize that they could do things like this. And they're just kind of like blown away. I mean, the girl who's allowing me to host here on Saturday was like, I felt like a pro the first time I did this. I think is that like reminder for people that yes, you can take up space, you can be loud, speak up for what you need, and be willing to do things differently. Like I remember when I was putting together my business, here I was doing craniosacral and then it was like, but I also really want to include my artwork because that was a big part of what I was doing for my business. But it was like, do I have two different businesses and this is what one and this is another, and it just was very loud and clear that it needed to be all together. And now I can see that through multiple different ways, for the mom who has lost her, so many moms, like I hold workshops and the moms are like, they've just forgotten how to be themselves, much less how to play. Like they've been in mom mode, they've forgotten a little bit when they're in that mode. So being able to get out when their kids are little and do something that's fun for them, that's not setting up a project for their kids, that's, just for them, it's like, wow, okay, I can have fun. I can do a little bit of something for myself. And that, maybe it is just creating that space for yourself and remembering that you deserve to do that. You deserve to take up the space. You deserve to be loud in the room. And And like you said, you never know. Maybe I was helping create space for others, and maybe that's exactly what we're meant to do. But when we don't follow that nudge, it doesn't happen. And
Yeah.
it
Well,
was
I
meant to
think
come through.
you kind of like, I kind of see this really cool superimposed image on you in my mind's eye visual state of like, I just, when we were talking about remembrance before I heard this, and then now I see this. So Nala is, amazing character on The Lion King, right? That holds
Yes.
this feminine energy. Of course, a
Yes.
lot of people think of Mufasa, well, saying about the Mufasa and him saying, and then Rafiki even saying, remember, remember
Yes.
who you are. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's cool that it involves the king and the male like structure there. But I'm like, we need to hear Nala say,
Mhm.
and she does actually. Oh my gosh. How many times you see the real heroine in that story is like, who tells Simba, "Hey, Simba, remember who you are," right? Is it Mufasa that really says that? Yes,
Mhm.
he has that fathering, mentoring, like to Simba, his son, that says that, and Rafiki is, of course, the holding him up. But who journeys
Right.
with Simba to actually say, "Hey, hey," and I mean, like we could do in these relationships with, I love my wife Dawn. It's like sometimes it's not like, Neil, could you remember who you are? She needs to tell me with some ferocity, like,
Right.
hey,
Right.
remember who you are. Like, what
Right.
what are you doing? What you doing that for? What's that? That's so I feel like, I think like you, I almost see you as the Nala in this fluid art container, telling people, remember who you are. Like,
Yeah.
you can. It's almost like some people might take that and be like, oh, flourish. Other people, it might be like, ooh, it wrestles with their messaging they've given themselves because of what they've heard in their lives. And,
Mhm.
but I feel like, yeah, it's really cool to see that. I just saw that. I was like superimposed Nulla energy on you. So that was
Yeah, I
really,
love that. And that kind of just reminds me even too of like what I was learning, and I'm still like, learning and figuring out where my beliefs are on this, but like it makes a lot of sense to me that Mary Magdalene's story might have been mishmashed over the time period, and that
yeah,
like that forgetting that she was the one standing by his side,
yeah,
holding space for him so he could be what he was,
yeah,
reminding him of that. Like that is that like that's that alchemy of a relationship, even that we all should even be looking for, but we don't even have that in existence to look at as like a model. It's like, what? Like, how is that? Yeah, it doesn't make sense that that's totally taken out, actually. Like, it just makes you start to wonder. And it does even think about like Nala and Simba. And I'm like, Nala was like Mary. I'm like, oh my God, walking alongside of her. My
totally,
goodness.
totally. Now we just got like, I would like, let's just, I'm like, we could talk for, now we could just go into that, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to think about that now for a while, because it's like powerful. So, oh my gosh, yeah. And I was just thinking about the, oh, I just was thinking about so much of that. Um, Beautiful opportunity for people to like, it's the time of reclamation of the feminine voice, and it
100%. Yeah.
shows up in a lot of different ways, and we're going to see it manifest in a lot of different ways. And
Mhm.
just you being you, who you are, is really doing that before you say a word, before you teach a class, before you guide anybody. That's what comes through. That's what came through your IG profile at me. I know now. It's like, I'm like, oh, I felt it before I knew you.
Mm.
Energetically, I could sense it. And the words and the insight you give are so profound and powerful. It's and yet they are coming right after that wave of energy to translate this thing you've been given. And I really feel that it's like, you clearly, you've been given something to give others. And I remember the first time you were telling me about your France experience, and it just was like, yeah, it is a pilgrimage, as you said, and it's a sojourn, and it's a quest in some sorts of like, yeah, I think it's really powerful you went on that. And I would say you're going on that, because I think you're still there,
Yeah,
right?
it's still 100%. That's why
Yeah,
I'm like, I can't even fully tell you why all I went because I'm still figuring it out now. But like even just in the ways that I've been able to expand in this last year, I don't know that I would have been able to do. I don't know that this conversation would be happening right now had I not done that trip, because it showed me that I could. It showed me I could handle more because I had my back, because I wasn't going to push myself and my nervous system not being able to go along for the ride. It was like my nervous system felt like we were in it together, and that made such a difference. I love the way that you like view and talk about how I present. I really like, it means so much to me. This stuff has been a passion of mine, like all of it, for so long. And, you know, there's only been like a very small audience to be able to share it with. And so being able to like spread that out and it still feel meaningful, it means a lot to me. So thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I'm eager to see and excited about your expression getting out there even more. It's already out there to like a lot of people. So I think it's going to be so cool to witness your kind of like your work. So
I love that you just call it expressions. I'm so sorry. I just want to say this last thing. I used to call my artwork holistic expressions, and I didn't know what to call it. So I was like, oh, it's so funny. You just called it expressions. I'm like, yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So from holistic expressions to holistic alchemy. Well, I love your current name, but it's really cool to know you had that expressions as a built-in kind of phrase about your work. So yeah. Well, I know. I'm excited because we're about to what is this? What do you call it when you say things, you come outside of the matrix of something? That's not what I'm trying to say here. When when you're doing a movie and somebody looks at the camera and somebody's like, whoa, that actor just looked at the camera. They're not supposed to, right?
Yeah.
That's actually never supposed to happen. And in a podcast for me to say, well, we're about to do more after this because this is the first
you're like,
one.
wait a minute.
I'm like staring at the camera, telling you all, don't worry, this energy is going to continue because I don't even want to end our conversation because it's so good. But we're gonna carry it through. So I want people who are tuning in who have, you're like what is this that I can lay a hold of? If you already don't follow Holistic Alchemy, Holly's work on Instagram or wherever else, like where can they find you? How can they follow you? How can they engage with you with what you're doing?
You can find me probably most of the time on Instagram. I'm at the Holistic Alchemist, and my website is holisticalchemy.com. I'm based in the Sarasota, Bradenton area, so if you're in the area, give me a shout.
Yeah, phenomenal. Well, definitely can't wait for people to kind of tune in and share their expressions, their
I hope that people do try this and share with us maybe what they've come up with. I would love that. So if you're listening and you try, let me know.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so you did it. Is any last things to leave us with before we finish our
no, I would just say that I think it's worth everybody's chance to just go out there and try it one time. I think it's worth just trying. If it's a waste of money for you, fine, but I highly doubt that that's going to be the case, and it might just open up a whole new Pandora's box for you.
Yeah, and like you said, Pandora's box, you might have people knocking at your door in Sarasota saying like, when's the next one, Holly? Can you teach me?
I know. So, that would be
so if you reach out and obviously, you'll know how to reach out to Holly and follow her work. Thanks, Holly, for our conversation, because I feel like it was such a beautiful foray into your world and also into a really beautiful medium that I think can give people some tools to integrate, heal, and express.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Compromised to Alchemized podcast. Really excited to thank Jessica from Lunaluxe for the music, this track called Major. I want to thank Toshi, who originally did the design work for my cover art. And then I also want to thank Alyssa, my team, for podcast publishing, my whole team, including Kat, for heading up my world. And then also definitely want you all to follow me on YouTube, follow the podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcast, comment, give us a rating, and also follow me on Instagram at Dr. Neil Bulchandani so you can stay tuned to my latest Thanks so much, and you have an amazing day.
This is made